in the Rubble Zone are not regularly built as the normal case, and the response as different from what was expected. Next, please. And then washout on caliper data. Washout on caliper data. When washout on caliper data, sometimes there is a washout zone on the caliper data that can indicate instability with this gauge zone. The interval is 250 feet thick, and we can solve this in the next figure. Gamma ray discordance. Next, please. Yes. Gamma. Next, please. Okay. Gamma ray chatter. Some of the wells have a chatter of varying values within the gauge zone. In this data set, 14, that is 25%, exhibit this feature. An example can be observed in the figure. Next. Decrease now. Anomalous sonic. The sonic log data, when available, occasionally reveals an anomaly slot value within this interval, and we can solve this in the figure number 3 of well EB 170. Yes, anomalous raw. There is only a short interval of raw data in the example presented in the figure, but it exhibits somewhat more dense readings. This is the opposite of what would be indicated in the washout, where less dense readings would be expected. Next. Anomalous sonic. The sonic log data, when available, occasionally reveals an anomalously slow value within this interval. Next, the anomalous drop that exhibits somewhat more dense readings. This is the opposite of what would be indicated by washout, where less dense readings would be expected. Again, this is an anomalous response in a specific interval of gauge of Rubble Zone below the solid. This is an example of a gauge zone identification where only a gamma ray and resistivity log are available. The identification is based solely on the discordance between the gamma ray and the resistivity log in a 230 feet interval below the salt, supported by the presence of both gamma ray and resistivity chatter. This is the well GC that exhibits discordance between the gamma ray and resistivity data. Gamma ray and resistivity chatter and anomalous sonic log and high gas readings, which all lie within this interval immediately below the salt. And this is the same well. The gamma ray and resistivity log are synchronized immediately below the salt. If there is a gauge zone, it would have a thickness of 20 feet or less. That's it.
Good morning, my name is Elias and I'm going to talk about Rubble Zone drilling practices and hazards. Main challenge related in the drilling of subsaline basins, and are these six points. And the first one is the circulation losses are the most frequent and costly problems in the area of subsaline rubble zones. And drilling losses, kicks, as well as instabilities in the hull of the well are another kind of problem that we can find in these rubble zones. Well controlled problems occur approximately 20% of the time. Cementation problems in weed formation below the salt is one of the most problems because if we have a bad cementation, it has a risk of losing the well in the future. And another kind of problem is a narrow drilling window. And this means that is the relationship between the gradient of the pore pressure and the gradient fracture. And the salt position and its dynamic or static state. The next one, please. And suggestions. The first step is that we have to integrate as much information as possible from wells, seismic structures, and events records during the drilling. And the second one is acquire as much information as possible in real time to properly diagnose events during drilling and make appropriate decisions. And the next one is that the risk in drilling Rubble Zone areas formations can be attributed to the presence of deformed areas along the south base. And the deformed zone is older than the underlying rock, and it's interpreted as a cutting zone. The next one. And low pore pressure can be found in complex channels immediately below the cutting zone, which includes sludge loose zones or mud looses. The permeable sands provide us with a strange opportunity to measure the high pore pressure and thus generate a pressure profile under the salt. And fluid migration can be an immediate signal of kicking under the salt. The pressure in the fluids is generally higher because of lateral pressures transfer. Next one, please. And the ballooning phenomenon. And this phenomenon is associated with a narrow perforation window. And as I said it before, this is the narrow perforation window is related to the pore pressure and fracture gradient. And is characterized by mud losses and mud returns, generally by 10 to 100 barrels. And this phenomenon is caused by induced fractures, opening and closing. And the mudway at salt exit is another critical point in the development of the well in rubble zones. And the most accepted is to leave the salt zone with a lower mudway in anticipation of losses. And high mudway may represent a risk of high economic losses. And when the weight of the mud is equal to the minimum stress, it's said to be an attempt to direct the weight of the mud through a good calculation of the drilling window. It helps us to prevent kicks and losses. From real-time drilling practices, as an example, the equal circulation density or logging while drilling, we can obtain the fracture limitation stress. That is the maximum possible mudway limit, and the minimum stress is the maximum possible pore pressure. The mudway required to drill below the salt is based on many factors. Salt section exposed while drilling out to subsalt sediments is the first impediment that we find. while exiting the salt section. The well-correct angle and azimuth is another point that we have to take care, because this is the first contact with the next stage of the drilling. The stress perturbation below the salt and its impact on the sediment's pore pressure and strain. And the other point is the lithification states of sediments before salt movement. If the formation occurs early in the evolution of the structure, it's said that they are good sediments and cannot form rubble zones. And brittleness of shales is another factor in the formation of rubbles. Rubble zone might not be present in asymmetric rich clay. It could be too plastic to form in typical fracture style. And one rule of thumb contends that a good mood weight for exiting the salt section is to have the 93% of the overburden gradient. And this is the casing setting. We usually use the casing in 13.5/8 inches. Analyzing the vibration pore pressure events during drilling to cover the rubble zones. In other words, is to have a good information of the VSP logging. The lack of knowledge of the drilling window makes us to make the casing setting to be the close as 1 to 200 feet of the base of the salt formation. BSP data help us to calculate the depth of the base of the salt and help us to predict the pore pressure below the salt. Another point is that the rock